Hi and welcome to Mojo Reading Revealed. I am Jaini Jailin and I will be your host. In the orientation episode, I did a brief introduction of the 5 gears of Mojo reading, which is the methodology that Padler uses to read humans. But we're actually going to be doing one episode per each one of the 5 gears to help you get more familiarized with the concept of the 5 gears and how each one of them works. To recap, the first gear is about studying the components, the 8 pod powers, and what kinds of physiological manifestations or cues these generate. The second gear is about 2 powers combining into broader fields that can also be read physiologically. Third gear focuses on taking the totality of the energetic patterns that a person gives off in such a way as to distinguish its design from any other design through the conflagration of cues and distinct signals. The fourth gear is the study of riffs, or game styles that different people within a certain mojo will manifest, and how those play out. Fifth gear is all about the awareness of one's state of mind when reading, and how to get oneself into the ideal state of mind for reading and other things, which is that of quasi-state. This episode is all about first gear, which is how those components, those 8 pod powers, present themselves through physiological cues. Before we get into those cues, let's first refresh ourselves on the quadrants of the brain and what powers are in each one of those quadrants. So we have the rear right quadrant of the psyche, and in that quadrant you have Jai and Zai. In the front right quadrant of the psyche you have the powers of Ni and Vi, and in the rear left quadrant of the psyche you have the powers of Nai and Vi, and in the front left quadrant of the psyche you have the powers of Ji and Zi. In general, the physiological manifestations that will come up when accessing each one of the quadrants of the brains will be as follows. When one's accessing their rear right quadrant of the psyche, you'll see their eyes disengaging to the right, either up, sideways, down, doesn't matter, just what matters is that they're disengaging to the right. When someone's accessing the rear left quadrant of the psyche, they'll be disengaging to the left. Again, up, sideways, down, they're disengaging. When someone's accessing the front right quadrant of the psyche, their eyes will be drinking in information. So you'll see a widening of the eyes, a perk up, a carriage lift. Those will be cues that will be associated with accessing those front right powers. And then when you're accessing the front left quadrant of the psyche, the cues in general that you'll see will be the articulation, there'll be some jutting to it, we'll go over that, and some other facial cues. But in general, the articulation and verbal and nonverbal will be connected to this front left quadrant of the psyche. When you're studying things from the perspective of the first gear, you're going to be looking at things at a component level, at a pod power level. So it's going to be a very isolated phenomenon. So like, what does eyes widening look like? What does a grimace look like? What does that Jai drift look like? And but in real life, you'll actually be seeing things in patterns happening, these different cues, like someone widening their eyes and shrugging at the same time, and with a left grimace. These things will be happening at the same time, so they happen in patterns. So in nature, you're not going to see humans just do one specific thing. But first gear does help you to hone in on those particular cues so that you can start building onto the bigger picture. When disengaging to the right, there will be 2 distinct looks that the cue will have depending on what power is being used or accessed. If someone is accessing their Jai, it will have a drifting quality, a drift look to it. And that's because of the more amorphous nature of Jai versus the Zai check That will be a check. It'll be precise. It's because it's doing a 49-51. It's a more yang process, if you will. So you can see that in the way the eyes will disengage to the right. Here you see a Demas looking to his right. What he's doing right there is a Zai check. There's a more yang quality to it. That, you know, he's doing that 49-51 that we talked about. That's a Zai check. Coach also will be doing a Zai check because he has Zai as his offside. But here you see myself and next up Nija. What we're doing is a Zai drift. We're accessing our Zai, going into that emotive compass and resonating, and so it'll have a more drift look to it. More yin, because it's a more amorphous power. When you disengage to the left, there will also be two different looks that you can have, or two different qualities that you can have to that left disengage. So, and that depends on whether you're accessing your power of Nai, the power of Nai, or the power of Vi. When someone's accessing the power of Nai, it will have what we call a Nai drift. And so it will be a disengaging to the right, up, sideways, or down, but it will have that drifting look, the more yin quality to the look, and that's again because Nai, the way its process works, it's speculating into the future, and it's a more amorphous process. So it has that more drifting, far away-eyed look. Whereas with Vi, it will be a check. There will be a yang quality to it, because with Vi, with that pot power, you're actually going and grabbing that specific memory. You're going for that one specific memory, or whatever specific memories you're looking for in your database, in your memory. And so that will have a very specific, precise look to it. And that's what we call the Vi check. Here you see Coach looking to the left. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the Nai drift. There's that amorphous quality to it. He's looking out into the horizon, looking away. There's a more far away look. When you look at Demas, myself and Nija looking to the left, what we're doing is accessing our vi, that memory. So it's a vi check. There's this more precise quality to the look, like you're fetching something very specific, which is exactly what we're doing. With the objective perception powers, cues that you're looking for are the ones that have to do with drinking in of information, taking in of information from your objective environment. And so there'll be cues like eyes widening to perk up, which is more intense, and then carriage lift, where your torso actually comes up. So the perk up is your eyes perk up, and the carriage lift, your torso actually comes up with your eyes. There'll be two different looks depending on what power is being used. So whenever knee is being used, there'll be what we call dancing eyes. The eyes are sort of bobbing from one place to another. It's a lilting quality. If you look at samples of Mojos that have knee and they're conscious, you'll see, and then the higher they have it in their cognitive configuration, the better. But you'll see that dancing eyes quality that they all share. And sort of the eyes, it's like you're dancing with possibilities. It's a very distinct look, and that's knee. With V, there are laser eyes, because with V you're looking at those five senses, at that sensory stimulation. So it's like there's a kinetic quality to it. It's and just like focused in on that sensory element. When coach widens his eyes, what he's using is his power of V to drink in the information, the sensory stimulation. And so you'll see the V laser eyes. When you look at Nisha, Ademus, and myself widening our eyes, what you're seeing are knee dancing eyes. Again with the perk up, since Nisha, myself, and Edemus all have knee eyes, what you'll see are the knee dancing eyes. With Coach, what you'll see are those V laser eyes. The carriage lift happens when the objective perception power gets super stimulated, and so there's like a lifting of the torso along with the head and the eyes. That'll have two different looks depending on whether you're using the knee or the V. So with the knee that myself and Edemus and Nisha have, you'll see a buoyant carriage lift with those dancing eyes. Whereas with the V users, you'll see an amped quality with those laser eyes. When someone's accessing the powers that are in the front left quadrant of the psyche, the G or the Z, the cues that will be manifested will be those of articulation, verbal and non-verbal articulation. There'll be two types of articulation. There's the cool articulation, which is when someone's accessing their Z, and there's the warm articulation, which is when someone's accessing their G. Because the power of Z is meant to just convey the facts, the information, there's what we call the cool articulation. So that's what myself and Nija, that's what we're using when we articulate the Z, so it'll have that cool look to it. The curtains are drawn. It's a logic-based discernment power.
So I like the movie Amelie, which is about a Nijai, and I don't know if the character is played by a Naiji, but if the actor is a Naiji, but I believe the character's. I really like the fun song, We Are Young, and especially the collaboration between Nate Ruiz and Janelle Monáe, because you really see like Jaini Nate Ruiz and Nijai Janelle Monáe both really just grooving their element as adaptive romantics, making this beautiful song, and it's really cool. And it's just really upbeat and uplifting, and the Jai is really amazing, so it just does a really good spell on me, so I'm glad that that's out in the world. I like Game of Thrones because it has so much cool natural law in it from like all different perspectives, so it's just a really cool, like the Nai of the world is awesome and the Zai of it, and then just how all the perspective shifts work, and then like the connection points, and just you really get a sense of like what it feels like to be in a Nai Alpha simulator by reading it, and it's just kind of a cool trippy guide.
So one of the movies that has made an impression on me is Braveheart, and that was similar to how Nija was talking about Amelie, and how that was about a character, Nijai, who was getting in touch with her other Naiji. That storyline kind of gave me in touch. It got me in touch with my connection with my other Jinai. I think the character, you know, like the actor, maybe he's an IG, but the character is sort of a Durang character, and that started my connection with the other, as far as like someone who really is just believes in something, has a worldview, and is just going for it, and is going to be champion this cause, and you know, he projects onto this you know, this woman, this other, who is, you know, then you know, murdered by some people, that now he has to go and rectify what's been done, and basically in the process he becomes like a champion for his people. So it's a really cool story. Song. There are lots of songs that I like, but one of the songs that I can think of that
one thing you want to do is to focus on articulation, because I don't
Yeah.
want you to do too much jai, it's confuse them.
Oh yeah.
Is really try to focus on talking to the camel or Davis.
Thank you, thank you. So the song that So a really cool song that I've heard lately is from Kimbra, song Good Intent. Actually, all her songs are really cool. But that Good Intent has like this jazz era, Art Deco sort of feel, and you know, like the big band and big ballrooms, and she, you know, it's cool because she gets in all these different characters, and it has like the jazzy, you know, like cool cat, cool suit, like guys, and there's like really cool like it's embodied, like there's this like dance that's going on as far as dynamics, but also the dance, the actual dance is really cool. The way the video is and the way she interprets it is really cool. For a book, I have to go with George R.R. Martin, Game of Thrones. I know Coach and Nisha have said it, and I know Dimas loves it too, but it's just such a masterfully done book. George R.R. Martin can really, like Nisha said, you know, he has a really powerful simulator, and he can really put himself into these perspectives of like all these different people, like from a little child, you know, to an adult, women, men, doesn't matter. He can just get into like the deepest interweavings of their psyche and just be as if, you know, from their point of view, but like it really you can sense that it's natural law, and so you get really riveted into the story. And so when you feel that things are building up to like a high energy event, you're like, how is it going to go? Because you know that it's going to be really like a natural law rendition of what's actually supposed to happen. So that's really cool.
Oh, cool.
Whereas when Coach and Adimas are articulating, it'll have a warm look because G is meant to connect with the audience and move those social dynamics, so that there's a warm look to it. Can you tell me about a plot of a movie that you've really enjoyed?
Ooh, let's see. There's lots of ones. I think probably the Memento classic. That was a very intriguing storyline, as was, I'll give you a little more than one if you don't mind, just kind of the general thing. I liked Memento, and I also liked Inception. So I'm gonna go with I like Christopher Nolan. Yeah. I really like the way he does movies. It really makes your brain go and it gives a nice way of twisting your brain that seems possible. That's actually very appealing. As is, there's a bit left to the audience as far as whether or not they want to believe the story happened one way or the other. He leaves a bit of interpretation to the audience. I like when a director gives a little interpretive license to the audience.
How about a song or songs that you like?
Ooh, let's see. I like the new song. I don't know the name of it. Maybe you can remind me. It's got like the like a fairy flying around.
Of men and monsters.
Yes,
think. Yeah.
That is really cool. And the reason I like that is because it has a sort of narrative flow to it, kind of almost mythological, and that mythological quality, it makes a song seem epic, and I'm fond of epic things. Plus, it looked like there was like Nai energy and Ni energy, Ji energy and Jai energy, and I approve.
Yeah, like the fairy, the good luck fairy.
The good luck fairy, that is just really cool. So.
What is a book or some books that have made an impression on you, and why?
Let's see. Well, I'm just gonna have to take a shout out to my boy, my man, George Martin. George R.R. Martin. He earns each one of those letters. Okay, so Game of Thrones, the Song of Fire and Ice, just incredible. The characters, the plot, the way it all goes together, the world logic, the drama, the high stakes. It has everything. If you have not read those books, go out and read those books. And it's on HBO right now, so you should obviously go watch those if you.
So yeah, the new Spider-Man movie. It's what's the word? A reset or a rewind or something that basically refers to, you know, when you take something that was old and redo it. So a lot of the fans didn't really know how they felt about that, and a lot of people like will bring up how like, oh, the first one was perfect, you didn't really need to redo it. Personally, I thought it was awesome. I actually liked it better than the first. Not just because the main character I felt was a bit more of a convincing Peter Parker than Tobey Maguire was. He played it in a very itchy way, which I liked. And when I say itchy, like you could tell like he's a very eccentric character. And they were more on the nose in terms of like going by the comics. I mean, they updated it for the times. Oh yeah, they updated it for the times and stuff. But they kept like a lot of complications, you know, like you remember the first Spider-Man movie, then the way his webbing worked out was like, it was just naturally generated webbing, but that's kind of lame in a lot of ways, just because the webbing wasn't supposed to be natural. It's supposed to be coming in cartridges that like he had, so it adds complication because he might just run out of complications. I mean, run out of complications. He never runs out of complications. He's Spider-Man, but he might run out of webbing. That's something he couldn't run out of. You know, so like slinging along through buildings, all of a sudden, oh crap, I'm falling. And so that's something they threw in there, which is pretty cool. Alright, well, the Big Bang Theory It's a show about 4, they're not all physicists, but scientists, with 3 of them with PhDs, 1 of them with only a master's degree. And basically it's the story about their lives of how to, you know, go day to day as a human when you're specialized in an area that's so detached from the rest of humanity, and then one of which, Sheldon Cooper, is the embodiment of the scientist character who is completely alienated from all the other humans.
Just like with the objective perception powers, there's that escalation with the widening to the perk up to the carriage lift as the power gets revved up and worked up. There's also this kind of intensification with the objective discernment powers. So when someone's articulating and really going, you know, and really activating that objective discernment power, you'll see another cue come up, which is that of jutting. And jutting will look like various forms of headbutting and headbutting the air, basically, accentuating the points, the argument. There'll be 2 different looks to the jutting depending on what power is being used. With those mojos that have Z as their articulation power, like myself and Nisha, it'll have a cool articulation look, so you can see when both of us are talking. The expression, it's more of just giving you the facts and the information. It's supposed to be about that, the competence of the articulation, the words that are, the arguments that are coming out. Whereas when Coach and Ademus are articulating, it'll have a warm look because G is meant to connect with the audience and move those social dynamics so that there's a warm look to it. There are also cues that come up in the mouth area, depending on what discernment power someone is using. When the mouth tension happens on the right, that means that the person is accessing the discernment power on their right, either the Jai or the Zai. And when the mouth tension happens on the left, that means that the person is accessing their discernment powers on the left, either their Ji or their Z. Next up you have the rictus, and again that's a cue that comes up when someone is using a discernment power. There'll be two different looks depending on whether it's a Zai grimace or a Zhai grimace. There are also the rictus cues on the left when someone is either using the Z or using the G. Shrugs are also a sign of accessing discernment. You'll have shrugs on the right, shrugs on the left, both shrugs at the same time. But when someone's shrugging on the right, that means that they're activating either their Zai or their Zhai, their discernment powers on the right. When you see someone shrugging on the left, they're using either their G or their Z. When you see someone swaying, you'll see sways either on the left or the right. That happens when someone's accessing their subjective powers and really getting into it. You'll see that sway. When someone sways to the right, it will be either accessing the Jai, like myself and Nija, or the Zai, like Ademus and Coach. When someone's swaying to the left, then they're accessing their subjective powers on the left, either the Nai, like Coach, or the Vai, like myself, Ademus, and Nija. There's also the squinting of the eyes, and that's very much related to the worldview power. So you'll see that, especially accentuated with the hunters. That squinting happens when someone's accessing their worldview power and really trying to figure out, what is this I'm looking at? What is this I'm seeing? So it's a look associated a lot with hunters, but also any other mojo when they're accessing their worldview power, either the nai or the vai. And these are all the first gear cues. So as your next step in your learning process of mojo reading, we would suggest that you take a look at the mojo samples that I dropped in the orientation series, plus the 50 Naiji and 50 Nijai that Coach and Nija dropped in the Nijes hunting show episode. And also look for, there'll be some spotlight shows, episodes, as part of the Mojo Reading Revealed, where we'll reveal all about the different gender mojos, and we'll be dropping samples of each gender mojo in those episodes as well. But take those mojo samples that you have access to and look at them in the context of the first gear cues. So what first gear cues these different mojos would present, and start honing your lens and calibrating your lens with that in mind. And then see if you can, when you're out and about, see if you can start noticing some patterns, some commonalities between what you've been looking at as far as the samples and their first gear cues and what people out there and the general public are presenting. And start, seeing if you can see things, note those patterns and read people, and it will just grow from there. I mean, your abilities will just develop, and once you start seeing those patterns, just keep going, and you'll get there. Do really take this rare and unprecedented opportunity to tune your first gear and to calibrate your lens by looking at the samples provided. It's the most efficient way of really quick starting your understanding of the human language and properly calibrating your lens. The list of people that we provided are a real-life opportunity who have ample footage out there in the media, internet, other sources, and you can see the similarities and pick up on the scent of these different gender mojos. So, you know, really take the time to do this step of the learning process, because it's really invaluable. You know, it really provides you those first initial crucial clues to solving this case. So good luck to all you Podlair detectives out there. We look forward to all your questions, and look for the next episode of Mojo Reading Revealed on the second gear coming up soon.